Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for watching. This is part 2 of the discussion of the rulings pertaining to the fasting of the month of Ramadan. And in the last video we had stopped at discussing the niyyah. The niyyah for the month of Ramadan, because this is a continuous ibadah. You can make the niyyah from the beginning of the month that I am fasting the whole month, and inshallah that is acceptable. But better, on top of that, you remember the niyyah before each fajr time, and even your suhoor is basically an intention, because why are you making suhoor except that you have an intention that you're going to fast? It is only the optional fasting, supererogatory fasting, where you're allowed to make the niyyah during the daytime. It's called the nafl al-mutlaq, the open optional fasting. But there are some other optional fasting where you have to do the niyyah before fajr, such as the day of Arafah and the day of Ashura and the 6 days of Sha'ban. Why is that? Because these are full days. There are specific set days. Although this is optional fasting, but these are specific number of days. Ashura is 1 day, Arafah is 1 day, 6 days of Sha'ban are 6 days. You have to get the full day, because if somebody is in an optional fasting decides to make the niyyah to fast in the middle of the day, such as 12 noon or 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. or just before Maghrib, somebody, as long as he has not eaten or drinking or had any sexual intercourse and has not ejaculated, has not committed any of the things that would nullify the fasting, and then he decided, oh, I haven't eaten or drank or had anything to eat, and I have not had sexual intercourse or ejaculation, I did not deliberately vomit, I did not did not do bloodletting and all the other things that break the fast. As long as he has not done any of that in the optional fasting, the open optional fasting, he can make it a niyyah from whenever he decides. But he only gets reward for the time that he has fasted, if it's 2 hours of that day or 3 hours or 4 hours. But when it comes to Ramadan, you have to have the niyyah, and all the obligatory fasting as well. You have to have the niyyah before the fajr, and specifically for Ramadan, because it's a continuous 30 days, you can make the niyyah from the beginning of the month. But in addition to that, try to make a niyyah every night as well. And also for those, any optional fasting days where you have to do full days, such as Arafah or Ashura or 6 days of Shawwal, sorry, not Sha'ban, 6 days of Shawwal, 6 days of Shawwal, then you have to have the niyyah from before the start of the day. And the niyyah has to be a firm niyyah. You cannot hesitate. If somebody hesitates in his niyyah, then the fasting is not accepted. That's very important. So somebody says, oh, I may fast or may not fast today. That's not accepted. It has to be determined. If somebody doesn't know that Ramadan is starting tomorrow, he can make a niyyah and say, oh Allah, if Ramadan is tomorrow, let's say he had to sleep early and he couldn't wait to know if tomorrow is Ramadan or not. He can say, oh Allah, my intention is that if Ramadan is tomorrow, I am fasting. That is acceptable if it turns out to be Ramadan. If somebody decides, had made a firm niyyah, and then in the middle of the day he started to hesitate about his niyyah. Am I going to break my fast? Am I going to fast? That is still, his fasting is still valid. But if he firmly decides, oh, I'm not going to fast the rest of this day, and he makes the intention to break his fast, even if he has not eaten or drank, but he has made the intention to break the fast, then his fasting is not valid. So there's different kinds of hesitation. If he hesitated from the beginning of the day and never formed a firm niyyah, then the fasting is not acceptable. But if he had a firm niyyah, he has to keep the firm niyyah throughout the course of the day. If he hesitated with that firm niyyah in the middle of the day, then still the fasting is valid. But if he decided firmly that he's going to break the fast and he's not going to fast anymore, then he's no longer fasting. Of course, when you fast, you should try to make the iftar early, and you make a dua as well at the time of the iftar, because Allah accepts the dua of the fasting person, especially at the time of the iftar. And you try to also make suhoor, because there's a blessing. فَإِنَّ فِي السَّحُورِ بَرَكَةً. There's blessing in suhoor. And in Allah وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ يُصَلُّونَ عَلَى الْمُتَسَحِّرِينَ. Allah blesses those who make suhoor, and the angels make dua for them. Even if you cannot really wake up to have a meal because you're so tired and you need to sleep, you can just take a sip of water, and that is considered as a suhoor. And it's better to make the suhoor just before fajr if you can. Of course, a fasting person should try to abstain from sinning in general, because if he's abstaining from what is halal at normal times, for stronger reason, he should abstain from the haram. We know that the month of Ramadan has many virtues. It is the month in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran. It is the month that has Laylatul Qadr. That is superior than Alf Shahr, 1,000 months, which mounts up to greater than 80 years. We'll talk about Laylatul Qadr in a separate video. Fasting Ramadan is an obligation. It is made obligatory on Muslims by the Quran and the Sunnah and the consensus of Muslim scholars. What determines the start of Ramadan? The month of Ramadan is determined, the start of the month of Ramadan is by sighting the hilal. Sighting the crescent. Whether you sighted it or a trustworthy person sighted it, even one person is enough for the whole community to start fasting. But if we did not sight the hilal on the 29th night of Sha'ban, then we continue and complete Sha'ban 30 days and Ramadan starts right after. So Ramadan starts by sighting the hilal on the night of the 29th of Sha'ban, or Ramadan starts after completion of 30 days of Shawwal. But we do not break our fast and start the month of Shawwal unless we have completed Ramadan 30 days, or somebody saw the hilal of Shawwal, at least 2 people, not one, but 2 people have to have seen the hilal of Shawwal on the 29th day of Ramadan, and that means that Ramadan was 29 days, not 30 days. But if we don't find 2 witnesses, trustworthy witnesses, seeing the hilal, the crescent of Shawwal on the 29th night of Ramadan, then we complete Ramadan 30 days. People who are allowed to break their fast are the people who are sick. That is, if the fasting would make them sicker or delay their recovery or expose them to danger, those people should not fast. Especially if it exposes them to danger, it would be haram for them, it would be prohibited for them to fast. But if it's a very light illness, such as somebody who's having a light headache or some nasal congestion, no, this is not an excuse not to fast. He has to fast. If somebody is sick with this illness that is expected to resolve, then that person will have to make up for those days some other time, once like after Ramadan. So let's say he broke his fast 3 or 4 days, he'll have to make up for them before the next Ramadan. But if he waits until the next Ramadan comes, that's a problem. Then he has to make tawbah. He has to repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he still has to fast those days. And then he has to also make fidya. He has to feed a poor person for every day that he, let's say he had 3 days, for every one of those days, he would have to feed them what is equivalent to 1.5 kilograms, 1.5 kilogram of the average food that he normally eats. But it has to come out as food. He cannot just give it out as money. He can go to, if there's something like a food bank that accepts money and gives out food to the poor, that's also acceptable. He can, if he had like 10 days, he can feed 10 poor people, or he can feed 1 poor person 10 days. That is fine as well. He can give it to one family that has 10 individuals. That is fine as well. But if somebody is sick with an illness that is not expected to get better, it's not expected to resolve, then that person does not have to make up for those days. He only feeds. For every single day, he would have to feed, he would have to give out food, 1.5 kilogram of food to poor people. 1.5 times 30, that will be 45, a total of 45 kilograms of food. He can give them day by day. He can give them at the beginning of the month. He can give them all at the end of the month. He can give them to one poor person. He can give them to multiple poor people. He can make food and feed people, or he can just give out food and they can cook it. The person who's traveling, he also is excused from fasting. But if he doesn't have to fast, but if he chooses to fast and he finds that it doesn't affect him, it doesn't put a burden on him, then it is better for him to fast, because he then gets the blessing of the month of Ramadan. But if it is a bit difficult on him to fast, then it is better for him to break his fast. Now, if it's really difficult on him to fast, and he may actually get sick from fasting while traveling, then it is haram for him. It is prohibited for him to fast. These are 3 levels. So if it doesn't make a difference for him, then it's better for him to fast. If there is some difficulty on him, then it's better for him to break the fast. But if there's great difficulty and possible sickness and hardship, then it is haram, it is prohibited for him to fast. If somebody is always traveling, like a truck driver, and every day he travels a huge distance that's at least greater than 100, that's 100 or 150 kilometers, then also pilots and those people, they can break their fast even throughout the whole month of Ramadan if they've been traveling the whole month, and they make up for any days that they are residing in a town. They can make up for those days. But as I mentioned, if it is easy for them to fast and it doesn't affect them, then better for them to fast. And making up for the days, you don't have to make them up continuously, like 30 days continuously or 10 days continuously. You can divide them. That is fine as well. You can also choose to make up for those days when the days are shorter, like in the winter. So then that's fine as well. If somebody is really old and it is difficult for him to fast, then he is analogous to somebody who is chronically ill, who is not going to get better. Then that person does not fast, and he feeds for every day, just like the person who was not expected to get better from his illness. A lady who is pregnant or breastfeeding, she is allowed also to break her fast. And that's by the consensus of all the 4 schools of thought, Madhab al-Hanafiya, wal-Malikiyya, wal-Shafi'iyya, wal-Hanabila. If she was worried that fasting would harm her physically, if she fasted, then she would have to make up for those days when she is able to. But if she broke her fast, not because it's difficult on her, but because she was worried maybe the baby would be affected by it, then some scholars said that she would just have to make up for the days. Some scholars said that she would have to make up for the days, and on top of that, feed 1 poor person for every day, 1.5 kilogram for every day. When we say feeding, it is always 1.5 kilogram of the average food that you eat for every day that you have broken your fast. If somebody has a very physical job, such as construction workers or oil patch workers, if they are able to fast, even with some difficulty, then they have to fast. But if it is going to make them sick, such as somebody fainting or getting dehydrated, no, then he would have the ruling of somebody who is sick. Then he can break his fast. But he should try. He shouldn't just assume that it is difficult for him. He should try and find out. Maybe one day he can, maybe one day he cannot, based on the intensity of the work. So he shouldn't take a blanket ruling, oh, I'm working a hard job, then I don't fast. No, he should try every single day. But if he finds it so difficult that he may get sick or become dehydrated, then he can break his fast. This is part 2. This is the conclusion of part 2, and please follow other parts until we complete the rulings and injunctions of fasting the month of Ramadan. Thank you.